Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I am talking about Nathan Hale's Hazardous Tales. Nathan Hale is the author of a series called Hazardous Tales, which discusses several big and some not so big events in American history. Things like Harriet Tubman, well, I guess events and people, because Harriet Tubman is not an event, she's a people person. Harriet Tubman, Lafayette, the Doolittle Raid, the Alamo, stuff like that. There are 9 of them out. I have all of them. I have read all of them. So I'm going to explain why I love them so much and rate them from my most favorite to my least favorite. First though, let's go through them in publication order. Like I said, there are 9, and they start with One Dead Spy, which is about Nathan Hale, who was a spy in the American Revolution for the Americans. He got caught by the British on his first mission and he was hanged. However, this series is premised on him getting caught, and then while he's standing at the gallows, he gets swallowed up by a giant book of history. And so to postpone the inevitable hanging by the neck until dead bit, he starts telling his hangman and the provost, or the British soldier who's there, all these stories about history and various future events. They get really into it and it's hilarious to watch their reactions. The hangman is very childlike in his enjoyment of them, and the provost is much more militaristic. But we start here and we tell Nathan Hale's story, where he came from, why he decided to become a spy, and then the whole getting caught thing. Next we have Big Bad Ironclad, which is about the ironclads of the Civil War. We didn't have submarines and we were still working with wooden boats, or ships, at the time of the Civil War, which was 1861 to 65, for those of you who do not take American history ever. And there were ships that were covered in iron. I still don't understand how they float, but this is why I don't do maths. So these massive iron ships still float, but because they're covered in iron and they're shooting iron at each other, they don't really sink. But this is the story of 2 particular ships, I just don't remember which ones, as they try and fight it out, and sort of the background of getting to the ironclads. Then we have the Donner Dinner Party, which is during 1846, sort of our Manifest Destiny period. So this massive group of families goes from Illinois and they're going to California, or they're going to try. They decide to follow a man that they shouldn't have, because it turns out he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he ends up getting a lot of them killed, and there's cannibalism, and it's not for the squeamish. But it's a bittersweet, pseudo-happy ending Manifest Destiny story. Then we have Treaties, Trenches, Mud, and Blood, which is the entirety of World War I in a book this long. It's intense. And then we have The Underground Abductor, which is about Harriet Tubman. So it starts from her childhood as Araminta Ross, and then when she finally decides, I'm done, I'm not taking this, I'm going north, and then keeps going back for her family. Then we have Alamo All-Stars, which is about the Battle of the Alamo in 1836? Sure. You know, I should know this. I read 2 books. Anyway, 1836, or definitely 1836. Anyway, Battle of the Alamo in 1836 wasn't so much a battle as it was a massacre. Mexicans versus the Texians, who were Americans that the Mexican government had allowed into Texas, which was then part of Mexico. And the Texians get a little bit angry with the Mexican government, and so we end up with this big, not so big war that the Texians do win. They just don't win the Battle of the Alamo. Then we have Raid of No Return, which is about the Doolittle Raid in World War II. Doolittle Raid was the state's reaction, initial reaction sort of, to Pearl Harbor. So Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor, we get angry, declare war the next day, as most countries would, and then we proceed to plan for the next year-ish to bomb mainland Japan. So not quite a suicide mission, but it wasn't safe by any means. I mean, nothing about war is safe, but there was a lot of pushing the limits for the Doolittle Raid. But that is this book. Then we have Lafayette, and if you know anything about Hamilton, you know who Lafayette is. Marquis de Lafayette, Frenchman, comes over to the States to, well, they're not the States, they're the colonies at the time, to fight against the British because the French and the British have this very long historical enmity, and why not help somebody who's not liking the British? And last but not least, we have Major Impossible, which is the most recent book he published. I want to say it was December of 2019. November, December, late last year. But this one is about Major Powell, who went on an expedition to explore one of the last unexplored areas of the Colorado River in the 1860s, 1869. He fought in the Civil War, which is how he lost his arm, and they went down the Great Canyon, went through the Great Canyon, Grand Canyon, why do I keep calling it Great? Grand Canyon, I think, but they went down the Colorado River and it is not an easy trip. Alright, and now we get into my ranking of them. To be fair, I did give all of these books a 4 or a 5 star because I think for historical graphic novels in particular, they're fantastic. They are incredibly accurate. I love his illustration style. He has monochromatic color schemes for all of them and they're different, which I think is super unique and I love it. He also has these great personalities for the 3 main characters, Nathan Hale, the Hangman, and the Provost. He changes up the format for pretty much all of them. He does a great job. But within that 4 to 5 star range, I do have my favorites. We're going to start with the least favorite and go to my favorite. My least favorite, I have to say, is Treaties, Trenches, Mud, and Blood, the World War I book. This one, one of the things I do very much like is that he includes maps like this, because like I said, this is the entirety of World War I, including starting with 1914 and Europe's involvement, moving all the way through 1918, which includes the last year of States' involvement. The States didn't really get involved until late 1917, so we're not really, we don't have a dog in that fight. But this one also, his unique part in this one was that he did them all as animals. So France is the Gallic rooster, Belgium is a lion, the UK is a bulldog, and the US, originally he has it as a bald eagle, but then it's crossed out and says bunny. Because if you remember, this is being told by Nathan Hale, who is an American spy, so he's also all for Americans, but the Provost and the Hangman, specifically the Provost or the British soldier, are very much so not. So the soldier is always hating on America. It's hilarious. This one was just, I think he did a good job of encapsulating World War I, but I think to capture 4 years of a brutal, bloody, heartless war was overly ambitious, and so it definitely made it less enjoyable because there was so much that I had to take in. Next we have Major Impossible, and this one, I did really like his depictions of the Colorado River and the canyons. So he has a lot of this kind of thing where it's 3 long ones and then a proper page of graphic novel. He also included some of his own watercolors at the end, which I think is really cool. I liked that he introduced each of the characters and went through each of them and what happened. I like the flashbacks. That was his really unique thing in this, was flashbacks pretty much every other chapter, which was really cool. He did a great job of going through Major Powell's childhood and how he got to where he was. He was an impressive man, I will definitely give him that. This one just wasn't so much a topic that really interested me, and because of that I felt like there wasn't enough to keep me fully engaged in this book. We do follow the Major through the Civil War, we follow his brother through the Civil War because they end up going together, and then after the war we follow them as they go through the Colorado River expedition, but because it's paddle down the river, crap there's rapids, get out and portage, or line the boats down, it did feel a little bit repetitive and it didn't really feel like we got anywhere. Next we have Big Bad Ironclad, which I did enjoy definitely more. I really liked the dark blue color choice for it. The Monitor and the Merrimack, by the way. his depictions of them are hilarious. There is a fox in this one, which is fun. But, again, for all of these, so I can stop saying it, he does a really good job with his accuracy and depicting what he's set out to depict. This one just didn't really stick as much as some of the other ones did. Then there's the Alamo, and this one, I will link the review and the Alamo talk I did down below, but this one he keeps switching up the page directions, and of course I can't find them now, but most of the time they're horizontal like this, but then there's at least one specific page that of course I can't find where it goes vertical. And it's found it, haha. And it's fantastic and I love it. So he follows each of them through in a very different way. This was not necessarily his fault, it's just the topic of the book. I think these people were stupid. Why would you stay in a place you know you can't defend when there is a massive army coming through? And maybe it's 21st century brain, I get that that's a thing, but it just irritated me. I did really like how he differentiated between legend and truth, though, because we can't always tell which is which. And so if he was citing something, he would say, this is the legend that we have, we don't know what actually happened. But I think it's a very good depiction of the Alamo. It's just not my favorite topic. But then we start getting into some of my more favorite topics, starting with One Dead Spy. I really liked how this set up the premise for the rest of the books, and I liked how it went through Nathan Hill's story so that you have sort of a basis for where this starts, and it shows him getting swallowed by the giant history book, and you start to get a feel for these two on the front, and it's hilarious. Next is Donner Dinner Party, which I really enjoyed because there were so many people and he did a great job making sure that you knew who was who, where they were, and whether they lived, died, or all of that. He also at the end provides statistics for how likely you are to die or live. So here on the Correction Baby page, he basically, if you are a female, you've got a really good chance of surviving. If you're a male, you have a much lesser chance of surviving. There we go. There's also a lot of snark in it. I really enjoyed the green. I think it did a good job, sort of, for me anyway, emphasizing these people are sickly and dying and freezing to death aspect of this without it being overt. This one does have a lot more squeamish warnings, I guess. He does also have warnings on the back of all of them, so he tells you all the nasty bits. For example, this one says hazardous level blue, tragic, for tuberculosis, hypothermia, starvation, accidental shooting, non-accidental shooting, stabbing, cannibalism, bears, and the eating of well-loved pets. So if any of that bothers you, I wouldn't read it, but I really enjoyed this book. And then we get into Lafayette, and he uses more quotes from Washington and Lafayette. I really enjoyed sort of the duochromatic aspect of this. It was more of a gray and a red, which I thought worked really well for the redcoats. This one also has a whole other mini story in it about Benedict Arnold walking on a flaming roof for some reason when he's young, with this red border all around it. And I really enjoyed that as well. I also definitely had Hamilton lines running through my head the entire time. There were just words that triggered it, and it was great. My second favorite is definitely Rate of No Return. This one keeps you engaged. It can really focus in on all of the aspects of the Doolittle raid because it is such a specific time. So this one does follow all of the planes, there are 16 of them, through the Doolittle raid. So it follows Bat Out of Hell, which was the last one off the plane, and it follows, oh, that's the only one I remember, that's awful. It follows all of them and it's great. He also, I love stuff like this when it's a full page. So he does that really well. He, I think, showed it just fantastic. He also, oh my goodness, one of my absolute favorite parts of this book is that he includes the entirety of Eleanor Roosevelt's December 7th speech after Pearl Harbor, and it is amazing. I clearly have to go learn about Eleanor Roosevelt now. But this one is really liked because it was focused and it included really good quotes and followed all of them through, and so you know what happens, how it happens, and what the effect of the Doolittle raid on the war was. However, I have to say that my favorite was definitely The Underground Abductor about Harriet Tubman. This one, like I said, follows her from her childhood through to when she finally kicks the bucket, and the purple in this was amazing. I think this is my favorite color choice of his. I love the depictions of her visions. They are stunning. So this is one of them. And he also says very clearly in this, because the hangman is the one who wants depictions of her visions, and so Nathan Hale, spy and author, says, "This is my interpretation based on her description of her visions." And it is fantastic. He explains that the lantern on the front is not actually what she carried, because nobody that good would be stupid enough to carry something that bright in the dark of the woods being hunted by slave hunters. He shows her using a chicken as a disguise or a distraction. It's so great. There's another vision. It's amazing. And in several of these he has another, I don't think it's in this one, but in one of them, Bill Richmond, who ties the knot for Nathan Hale the spy's hanging and then later becomes the first African-American boxer, drops into the story. There's another Mexican spy from a later time who drops into the Alamo. It's very cool, but this is my favorite because of the colors and the depth and the emotions that he manages to convey. I know this is a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!